Hey folks, Andy here. This is a quick video about the differences between Mbira instruments that have the same tuning but made by different makers. So I've got here two B-flat Nyamaropas, one on the left by Sebastian Pott and one on the right by Jonah Wazara. This isn't Sebastian's style of buzzers, this is something that I've attached, so don't consider that part of Sebastian's style. What I wanted to show you was there's three main differences. If you're going to try and get an Mbira instrument of the same tuning, you want to consider these three different things. The first one is what one maker calls B-flat Nyamaropa or G Nyamaropa or F Mavembe. It's going to be different across makers because they might consider Nyamaropa to be a different series of intervals, a sort of music language. The differences between the notes can be sort of stretched or shrunk a little bit to give them a flavour that this maker might call Nyamaropa, and the differences between the notes, the intervals on this one might be slightly different because that's what this maker considers Nyamaropa. There's not a sort of standardised meaning to the word, other than loosely it's note 4 that feels closest to the home or root note of a major scale. But that Western language it's kind of useful. It helps us, it gives us a little reference point, but it's not like the makers are aiming to get their Mbiras to sound like Western scales. It's that the Western scale language helps us sort of have a way in to talking about these tunings, but the makers are making the instrument to sound how it ends up sounding. That's the maker's intention. So if we look at the note ones on this instrument, let me just play this first note 1 over here on Sebastian's B-flat Nyamaropa. And then I go over to Jonah's and play the same note 1. Oops, sorry, I scuffed that note. This one is slightly lower in note 1. Let me go for this note 1 here. So we'd expect that to be slightly lower than the note 1 over here, which it is. I don't know how closely you can hear that. La, 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 la. I might be exaggerating slightly with my voice, but hopefully you can hear a difference. If I go up to note 7 here, I think it was quite a big difference. So the note 7 on this one is lower than this one. Can we hear that? So this B-flat Nyamaropa was tuned to match up with the instruments played by Chartwell de Tiro. So a lot of folk in the UK play this style of B-flat Nyamaropa that's often referred to as Devon tuning because it was popular in an Mbira camp in Devon that Chartwell began. I'll play a couple of cycles of a song on here. And then if we go over to Jonah's. So there's a different flavour to the two tunings, even though, so I'll put Sebastian's on the left, even though they'd both be considered B flat Nemeropas. So the intervals can be slightly different between makers. The second thing that is different between makers is something that might be best explained with Jonah's instrument first. If I pop a finger on one of the keys, the lower keys, maybe even just with a nail, so I've got a gentler touch, you'll find a point where you can strike the note and you end up hearing a second sound, a secondary sound. So we could play the note open, and then we can find this point. It's hard on this note because it bends quite a lot. I'll do the same here on this note 3. You can start hearing it there. Note 4. There it's clearer. There it's coming through. And the note that you're hearing when I put my finger on there and pluck that is another note. It matches with another note higher up on the instrument. Let's find it. Ah, there it is. This is the higher note 4. So the overtone we're calling the secondary note of this one is 2 octaves above. We've got a note 4 here, here, and here. The sound we're getting when we find that point is 2 octaves higher. Let's go to note 5. Oh, it's quite clear there. That is note 5 in the upper register. Note 6, then we'd expect the overtone of this one to be note 6. And it is. So what Jonah's doing here, he's tuning the overtones, these secondary notes, to be 2 octaves higher. So that creates some sort of unity among the instrument, across the instrument. And it's more common for Mbira makers to try and tune the overtones of the lowest notes particularly. When we get up higher, it's something they're less concerned with because the notes themselves, the main note, is so strong. Good. So on Jonah's instrument, he's tuned the overtones 2 octaves up from the note itself. If we go to Sebastian's instrument and we do the same, let me go for note 4 because the lower notes is harder to get those overtones coming through. So find this point. I'm using my nail for a sort of gentle touch. Excuse my dirty nails, sorry. So there's a clear note coming through there that's different from the original note. And let's find that note somewhere else. Ah, there it is. What note's that? That's note 6. Yet we're playing note 4 to achieve it. 4 all the way up to 6. So for this particular note, Sebastian's tuned it 2 octaves and a third. The overtone he's tuned 2 octaves. So this is a original note. 1 octave higher would be this note 4. 2 octaves higher would be this note 4, which is what Jonah's tuning his overtones to. And then we're going up another 2 notes, 1, 2, 3, to get this third, 2 octaves and a third higher than the original note. Let's move up to this one, see if follows the same pattern. Note 5. this overtone is pretty close to note 7 up here, which is 2 octaves and a third. Note 6, original note, and overtone. Going up to note 1 here, 2 octaves would be 6, 6, oh sorry, 6, 6, and 6. A third, 6, 7, 1, and we're finding this high note 1, which matches the sound of the overtone of our note 6. So Sebastian's tuned the overtones for the notes on this instrument 2 octaves and a third higher. So on top of the intervals between those original notes being different, the overtones are also being tuned differently. So that's the second reason why you're going to hear different sounds coming through from different makers. Some makers pay a lot less concern to the overtones of the notes. So they might make let's say they've made 2 different instruments in the same tuning. They might have different overtones across those 2 different instruments because it's not something they're so concerned with. So you're going to end up with different flavours, different instruments from the same maker. And then when you've got different makers that prefer different overtones, you're going to find differences there. Sebastian, I know, is very conscientious when it comes to overtones, so he's intentionally tuned these 2 octaves and a third. He doesn't do that on every instrument. He might choose a different type of overtone for his notes, and that he does that to match an instrument that he's trying to copy or make from scratch. Cool. So we've got these two main differences: the intervals between the notes, so the actual notes themselves. Then we've got the overtones of the notes. And then we've got the fact that this is a natural product, wood, and the sort of harmonies, overtones. There's things that happen when you pluck a note that vibrate elsewhere. There's a lot going on in the instrument. So to get all of that to work together is quite a skill, and you're going to have different flavours coming through on different Mbiras by the same maker. When they're intending to achieve the exact same sound, there's still going to be slight differences. So if you're looking to get the same sound as you're hearing on someone else's Mbira, the best option is to get another Mbira in the same tuning from the same maker, but be aware that it is still going to sound slightly differently. Densities of wood are going to change things. You're never going to get the exact same sound. It's not a sort of factory produced thing. It's natural, and it's difficult to get all of these to be working together without having awkward buzzes happening, because there's some sort of frequency that's getting carried across from here over here, or from here up here. So that's the 3 main differences that you're going to find between instruments. I've just shown you 2 Mbiras here from makers that are concerned with the overtones that come through from their notes, that are concerned with the fundamental, the original note that you hear when you pluck the key open. That's a sort of minimum across makers, but some makers are still pretty flexible with that, and you're going to hear notes that you'd expect to be the same, slightly different as well. So yeah, there's a lot to look out for, and my main thing is, don't just go and buy a cheap Mbira that's got that's listed as having the same tuning from an unknown maker, because when something's cheap, it's likely that it's been made with less care, and you're going to want to fall in love with the instrument that you're playing and continue playing it for years to come, and by that point you'll have forgotten how much it cost you. It'll end up costing you pence per hour to play it if you carry on playing it for years, and you'll be inspired to carry on playing it for years because it sounds beautiful. So yeah, just a few things to be aware of there. Good luck in choosing Mbiras, and as always, you can reach out to me with questions and I'll do my best to help you.